You are everyone. You are me.
Some more of this after we get the show rolling. There's a little teaser, one of the originals from John Anderson's new album, True. And Steve and I were in Phoenix to see that show a couple Wednesdays ago. It was amazing. We've reviewed that. Look for that on our channel. Steve, like, I don't know where to begin, so go for it.
Yeah, so we're reviewing True, the new album by John Anderson and the band Geeks. We were thinking of maybe waiting until our CD copies arrived, but I saw that mine arrives by Friday, and we listened to the album. I've listened to it 3 times via the official YouTube thing. And
Same.
So since we both listened to it, we're like, you know what, why don't we just review it like now? Like,
Yeah,
and
2 reasons.
yeah, so we got
3 reasons. Actually, 4
Yeah.
reasons. One, we didn't want to seem
5
like
reasons. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
we didn't want to seem like latecomers. 2, it was hard for Steve and I to talk about it because we don't talk about stuff really before the show. We might come up with ideas for a show, and it was like, okay, I don't know how long I can hold this in. 3, because we wanted to, and 4, because we said so. Here we are.
Right, yeah. So yeah, this album has 9 tracks. So True Messenger, and then Shine On, Counties and Countries, which actually got its own music video as well. Build Me an Ocean, Still a Friend, Make It Right, Realization Part 2, Once Upon a Dream, and Thank God. And I do have the songwriting info on my end, or at least for a few of the songs. That I found the songwriting info quite fascinating. Great. But first, overall, how do you feel about the album, Dad, now that you've taken it in and whatnot?
Yeah, and I've really taken it in. And so I want to preface this by saying John's work since Elias of Sun Hello, his solo work, and if we include even John and Vangelis, it's very varied. You know, it's not all the same. If you look at the Promise Ring, Elias of Sun Hello, I mean, we can go on and on. They're all in a way quite, yeah, they're one of my favorites. They're all quite, in fact, that Elias and this are my favorites. This is my favorite. And this is the most, so I'm trying to think of how to say this without pissing anybody off. I mean, fans are going to get pissed off, some of them anyways. I'm not talking about band members of Yes, but this is the most Yes sounding stuff, I think, since Magnification and The Ladder. And I know that Yes has gone on. They did Fly From Here, they did Heaven and Earth, they did From a Page. You know, all these other things are great. Love them. But this is amazing. And when we saw them live, they played 3 tracks. They played a song during intermission over the sound system that we didn't see them play. And it was a really great glimpse. But letting, as Steve said, take the album in, this is amazing. It really is. I have so much other things to say about it, and like 2 or 3 songs I really want to point out. But I hope I don't sound like hyperbole or I'm overstating it, but I'm just floored by this. But Steve, how about you?
Yeah, I really enjoy this album as well. It's incredible. And I think, you know, just from what I've seen online of what people have been saying, some would agree with you that it feels like the most Yes sounding. To me, I think it's a mixture of things. There are certain songs on here where they feel like they could have been on one of John's other projects. Like Build Me an Ocean and Thank God, for example, feel like they could have been on some sort of John Anderson solo album. Some people have been saying that this album harkens back to 70s, 80s sounding Yes, which in themselves are very varied. So it's like, how do you narrow that down? I saw a couple people say that to them it sounds like a mixture of Going for the One and Tormato, but I don't really hear that necessarily.
I don't either.
What's funny, about this album and about The Quest and Mirror to the Sky is people say that it feels like they're trying to sound like 70s, yes. But if anything, if any of the familiar elements are here, like the familiar stuff to me, if anything, reminds me of mid to late 90s, yes. And maybe there's a little bit of things that really make me actively aware of 70s stuff, like the epic Once Upon a Dream has a keyboard bit that reminds me of Close to the Edge and Awaken, those types of epics. But I think for the most part, whenever I hear something that sounds familiar to me on this and on the last couple of Yes albums, it feels to me like harkening back to mid to late 90s Yes in some places.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily imagine that this album could have been made in the 70s, because it sounds so modern that it's hard for me to imagine that. And it's fresh, but it definitely has that spirit of being prog and being collaborative and that type of energy. So to me, it feels like a mixture of Yes and some John Anderson solo and collaborative stuff, and of course the band Geeks. And I've seen a couple people say that to them it feels like a Blue Oyster Cult album with John Anderson.
Wow, I don't hear that at all.
Yeah,
But
me neither. Like my only frame of reference for Blue Oyster Cult is and of course Richie's been in Blue Oyster Cult, but I've listened to The Symbol Remains. I think that's one of the recent albums, and maybe the one after. And of course, I'm sure I've heard a couple hits, that were on the radio, but out of what I know of Blue Oyster Cult, like I don't really hear that. This feels very much like its own thing with some traces here and there of other familiar things. If that
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
I want to point out that as Steve and I go through this, first of all, let's remove the word try. They're not trying to sound like anything specific. They're doing what they do. That's number one. Number two, as we do point out some similarities, we are not minimizing the fact that this is their own sound. Richie's proved to be a great musical director, songwriter, all of that, as well as the other guys. So we're using comparisons simply for context, as anyone would with anyone they're reviewing that's done anything else they know of. I mean, it's just natural. So what I hear,
like it's not a copy and paste. And Richie even put up on his YouTube channel him and Andy Ascalise and Chris Clark talking about the process. And you see clips of Andy Graziano and Robert Kipp as well. And I think it was Chris who said, let's not try to sound like Yes, but let's kind of look at some of the people that influenced Yes. And they mentioned Sly and the Family Stone. And that's kind of an approach that you get in things like some Star Wars projects will try to be like Star Wars, but other Star Wars projects will look at the things that influenced Star Wars.
Right.
So it's like an interesting approach. But go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off on like the what sounds familiar to you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. On that note, like I don't know where to start. If we should just go, you want to just point out some of our favorite tracks and the qualities they seem to remind us of. You want to go there?
Okay, yeah. So my top favorites, well, my favorite out of all of them is probably Once Upon a Dream, the 16-minute epic.
Yeah, we're still stuck in that vein, apparently, where we just love long things. But go ahead.
It really feeds into that stereotype of like, people expect the longest song to be the best one. And somehow it just so happens to be true on True still. Yeah. And this apparently evolved from a 3-minute demo, and
that makes sense, actually.
Like the band Geeks asked if they could like add on top of it, and John was like, go for it. And they even include a little bit of the demo and just put on top of it, apparently, but I wouldn't have noticed because it just all feels natural and organic, and it has such a big sound to it. I love, especially toward the end, when you hear John singing Once Upon a Time, dreams are meant to be once upon a dream. And like the vocal harmonies are great on that and on other parts of this album as well. Like they're so catchy and they work so well. So would this also be like one of your favorites, or like what are your favorites on
Yeah.
here?
So for the first question, it's definitely one of my favorites. I'll just go to that song. It really has, I think, for most people, I think it has everything you would want and everything you would expect for John to be modern and be proggy and pull from his history, certain elements. It really has a little bit of everything, which is cool. There are some parts that are maybe like halfway through forward. There are parts that to me were reminiscent of To Be the One or Be the One and That Is from Keys 2. And a lot of it sounds like it could have been on that album. And going to other favorites, Shine On is a really great, dare I use the word, commercial piece. I'm going to say a please everybody piece, but without it being a mailed in sort of thing. It's still proggy. It's got some odd, crazy timing stuff. It's a great second track. Yeah. Oh, that is so. And it reminds me a lot of The Ladder. And
yeah, like it really does feel like it could have fit well on the Ladder track list.
Definitely. And True Messenger is a perfect opening track and has big, deep, vivid traces of talk, especially leading up to and within the guitar solo. Andy just like, wow, that's just like, wow. Because other stuff sound like other elements of, yes, not necessarily like, oh, that's Trevor years, but that just the guitar sound and the tone. And then going back to Once Upon a Dream, Andy, the drummer, Andy's drums sound almost exactly like Alan's drums on Be the One and That Is, only slightly modern because a lot of technology has changed since what was that, 97, 98, 96, whenever 96. That was. Yeah. And fast forward, we're almost 20 years from there.
Let's fool ourselves into thinking it's been less time. Yeah.
Right. It's really, and it's not that they're trying to do anything. These are if you're a musician, just like Steven's a novelist, our influences always seep in. Otherwise, they wouldn't be influences. Thinking about that, whether it's cooking, painting, drawing, making music, writing poems, writing books, athletics, it's all the same. Our influences are going to feed into that, or they wouldn't be influences. So but let's talk about that. Who's the lead singer in this again? Oh, that John guy is just incredible. He's going to be 80 in October. I keep running around saying this. My wife, people on our team, which I'm Talk TV, people I know who are music guys, it's astounding how good he sounds, but also how with age, and I don't just mean physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, he's not like laying back and now all of a sudden it's some slow sing-songy stuff. There's still all this heavy stuff and heavy time signature changes and deep lyrics. And he's still John. He's still the 22, 23-year-old John with 55, 8 years of wisdom and experience built into what's happening, in his mind and creativity in his heart now. And it really is amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah. And, talking about influences and familiarity, like there are certain words in John's lyrics that'll occasionally pop back in a later project, like back in
River.
River. Back in the early 2010s, he and Rick did an Anderson Wakeman album called The Living Tree. And my favorite song on there is House of Freedom. And he sings the words like House of Freedom, I think on Once Upon a Dream. And the singing in that song, I think is sort of similar to one of these other songs. One of the middle ones, maybe it was Make It Right or Still a Friend. But also he sings the words To Be Alive, and that's another song from The Ladder. And you pointed this out to me on a call last night that his singing on Thank God has a similar rhythm to how he sings the song To Be Alive on the
Yeah.
ladder, you know, the you know, that type of
It's
thing.
almost the same melody, cadence, and phrasing. Like when I first heard them sing it, do it live, for a minute, I thought for a moment they were doing that song. It's that similar. And after about maybe the first 3-4 measures of him singing, I realized, no, those aren't the lyrics, but the melody is
Yeah.
it's the same. And you know, that's okay. That's gonna happen. He wrote the other one. Like, why
Yeah.
would your own stuff seep into your own stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, on his EP in the early 2010s, Open, he sung a few lines that were similar to New Language, also from the latter, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, you know, if you worked on that, then why not? And recontextualizing it with new words, and so
Right. I just
it,
don't want to
yeah,
get to the point where we hear, you know, 3 songs that end up starting with ba-be-dee boo-doo ba-da, you know, the beginning of All Good People, you know, or Your Move. You know, we don't
right,
want 3 Deep Purple songs to start out with you know, we're not talking about that, but there's similarities, you know, and it's the music is so good. Some of it some of it imprinted right away, just like a pet would on a person, and others I'm still like, okay, I don't remember exactly how that one goes, and but they're great. There's nothing on here where, like, if it was a vinyl, I'm not going to lift the needle and skip that one. None of them are like that. And
right.
not the whole album sounds like the same thing, but I want to give kudos also. Oops, I almost hit end stream because I want to open up the comments. Thanks, guys. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to give kudos to Richie and the entire everybody. Just how good the background vocals sound. There's that one song where it's a trade-off where Richie's singing where Chris might have done a trade-off with him. There's that, you know, that's so it's just,
Yeah, there's a bit where they sing "Set Sail a Sailor" or
yeah,
whatever the words are on Realization Part 2, and I really like the rhythm of it and how it complements John's singing. Like, it really feels like a full band and they're really giving it their all.
totally. It's so cool. I want to get to a couple comments right here. Let's see. Hey, Daniel Paterno, thank you very much. Good to see you watching as well. Andy Nichols says, loving the album so far. The cover, but the music is great. Reminds me of the Anderson Stoll project. I think, Steve, you mentioned that at one point, I think.
Oh yeah, Invention of Knowledge is one of my favorites, and I felt a bit of that energy on a couple of these songs as well. Definitely Once Upon a Dream and maybe on one of the others, but it does feel like a new thing, like,
Yeah,
make no
this is
mistake.
what Daniel's saying here is kind of what I was saying. He says it sounds like the very best of all Yes music. Everyone who plays on the album is top notch. Everything magical about John intact, and the Geeks collaborate and support him every step of the way. That's a really good byline for a review. That's really good. Yeah, that's a great synopsis for if you're not sure you want to get the album. What Daniel said right there sums it up very well. And then Tony Brown says, I haven't received my autographed copy yet, but I'm loving the stuff on YouTube. Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine. Steve's should come any moment now.
Yeah,
It's
it comes
funny.
with an autographed insert. We ordered from the Talk Shop Live
Yeah, it's funny. I
website.
live where you would think Steve's would get to his first, but last time we ordered something at the same time, I got mine first. So who knows? And I haven't been tracking it. It'll show up one day. I'll be like, and I'll probably be like, hey, what is this? And then I'll open it and go, oh, yeah, that's happened a few times.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is, you know, and I mentioned the writing credits. So there are a couple Union people who co-wrote a few of these songs.
Oh, I'm not aware of this. Why don't you go through the writing credits?
Yeah. So uh, pretty much all of these say John Anderson and the band Geeks, and you see Richie has writing credit on some of them too. But Build Me an Ocean has a Jimmy Hahn co-write, and
wow.
the demo of it was actually shared a while ago, and it feels like it was updated for this in order to match the production of the rest of the album. I remember when Jimmy talked about how he's really excited to finally, because he had worked on stuff with John way a long time ago, and so it's cool to see some of this
Come to
see the
life.
light of day. And
Yeah.
Make It Right was also co-written by him, and Still a Friend, or actually, let me double check. I think I might have gotten mixed up. I just need to click through these songs. So, okay, so not Still a Friend. So then Make It Right was co-written by Jonathan Elias and Richie Castellano. Real is the other Jimmy Hong
Say that again. You cut out there.
Realization Part 2 is the other Jimmy Hahn co-write. So Jimmy co-wrote Be an Ocean, which was originally called Buildings, and Realization Part 2. And Jonathan Elias co-wrote Make It Right and the Once Upon a Dream demo.
Cool. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say John has worked with them on like other things over the years, but yeah, so some of his stuff I've worked with them have ended up here. And the song Thank God, John co-wrote with a musician named Robin Crow, apparently during the time period of The Ladder, according to an interview I saw, because he mentioned recording with Yes in Canada. So yeah,
some of this is tying together a little. That's interesting. For those who missed the very beginning, we played a little clip of
True Messenger.
Let's play that whole 1 minute 19-second clip I filmed at the show in Phoenix. Check this out.
You are everyone, you are me. You are everyone, you are free. All of us can see mistakes, getting over all the sense of reason. Even if the power light shines in the sense the storyline.
So cool. And the audio, folks, that's just my iPhone at the show from about maybe 30 feet back. But you get the sense of it. And, I wonder, Steve, since they played 3 songs, I wonder if they'll recycle the tour at all and play more of the album, or if that's going to be, maybe they're already planning, yes, let's do another album, bring some of this. I mean, there's some songs they didn't play that of course we would love, especially Once Upon a Dream. There's a big question there, and when we have John on, we'll ask him. We talked to John, he said he'd come on, so we're reaching out again and hopefully gonna get him on.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, still waiting to hear back on that, but we'll see. But yeah, that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, we heard True Messenger, Shine On, and Thank God in concert. So which other songs are like, oh, I desperately need to hear them play this live the next time around?
I'm going to limit it to all of them. I mean, Once Upon a Dream,
yeah, I think I would choose that one, and Counties and Countries. Like they're both very proggy.
I liked Build Me an Ocean. I'm wondering who's Still a Friend. I didn't pick up on who Still a Friend is too. Do you have any idea? Maybe there's a dedication on the packaging when we get it. But do you have any speculation? Could it be Steve Howe? Could it be Alan? Or I don't know.
Maybe. I did see a post that let me just read this real quick, make sure I get things accurate. But yeah, so you basically want the whole album performed, right?
I'd like as much as possible, but as if they play Counties and Countries and Once Upon a Dream, whatever else they do, I'll be happy with. Whatever they leave out, I'll be respectful for.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
what we saw plus those.
Okay. Yeah, so our friend Joe Cass from Total Mass Retain, he mentioned John Anderson interview he heard on XM 103, and John mentioned he said, I was taking my walk and listening to our new song Still a Friend, and I was holding hands with Chris and Alan on my way down the hill. So I don't know if it's about them, but apparently recently he listened to the song and was thinking of them in that instance, which is really nice, you know, because when you've collaborated with people in a band for that long, you know, it's how can you not think of them from time to time?
And it's not just collaborating, which is true. It's, you know, you go through a writing process, you slave it out in the studio, and then but going on tour, you're interacting so much, unless you're the Who traveling on separate planes, and then you see them on stage and that's it. But for the most part, you know, there are the deepest of relationships built sometimes, you know, and as you mentioned, for that long, think of how long Chris, Alan, and John did work together in every sense of the word, writing, recording, touring. It's like they spent years and years of time together, sometimes more so with each other than their families. If you look at how many hours out of the year they spent together, and deep, meaningful stuff that they did. Look what they did. Look at the music they created, the legacy, the genre, practically. You know, so it sounds like that could be. And you heard, I think you heard when I was talking to John when I reminded him that I knew Alan and I'm the one that brought him a turkey, you know, all this stuff. And he said, Alan was my best man. I said, I remember that, of course. And he recognized you right away from Patreon because you're so active with his Patreon Zoom calls. That was cool. And what I referenced when I said to John, I interviewed you a few years ago, and he said, I remember that was at a red carpet event in Las Vegas. It was some award show.
Yeah, I remember seeing the clip, but I don't remember the full context. It was like sometime in the mid 2010s, you know, somewhere in that area. Yeah,
it was like the first year of Drum Talk TV, so it had to be like 2013. Okay. I just don't remember the name of the award show, but Carl Palmer was there. Jordan Rudess, I interviewed Jordan there of Dream Theater, a few others. So that was cool. And here's Mr. Watkinson, we'll go with. Just when you think you can't be surprised by John's work, Drew comes along. Dave, we would love to get your thoughts as well. Everyone else is chipping in. Go for it. That's also very well put. I had no idea what to expect before we saw the show in Phoenix. And then they broke out those songs. What was the song they played during intermission?
Counties and Countries.
That's right. And Stephen was like literally,
why is everyone talking?
It was literally upset. Like he's trying to shush the whole crowd that's lingering in the theater while other people are, you know, getting beers, soda, popcorn, and
I wasn't actively shushing people, but
he wasn't. But it was that he was giving that vibe. He's looking at me like I could just see the thought bubble. Like, shut the fuck. It was funny. Like we're trying to listen. There's all this, you know, murmuring and chatter. That's why I just couldn't place it.
No, but yeah, that's a great song.
It is.
Funny, the keyboards in the beginning of it have this sort of sweeping royal feel, kind of like they could have been on a Rick Wakeman album from back in the day.
Interesting.
And yeah, I like the twists and turns that it goes through. When I saw what the track list was, you know, we'd heard the song Thank God at the concert, and it's like a softer song. So when I saw that it was the last track on there on this album, I was like, oh, I wonder how Dad's gonna feel about that, because we have like this running thing of like you'd rather they end with a huge bombastic song than a softer song. But I feel like the version on this album
It
feels like
works.
it has more layers on
Yeah,
it.
I will cave and say this one is at a softness yet of a vibration that works for me personally as a fan. To end Magnification, which was so grandiose, and it, to end that with Time is Time, which I love that song, and I love the version on Songs from Songus, but to end the album like that was like, okay. And same thing
Yeah.
with Holy Lamb. I know Holy Lamb's one of your favorite Yes songs, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of Big Generators, oh, okay. It just kind of like it goes away into the sunset. Maybe that's the design. For me, I just like an album like Steve Howe's, the Steve Howe album. Was it the Steve Howe album or was it his first? To end with Get Away From It All is such a great way to end
Break
an
away
album.
from
It just left with more energy than you started with. That's just my personal sensibilities. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's whatever the artist decides. So, but it's a great point. Terry Brown says, "You read my mind." Which item are you referring to, Tony? I think I said Terry Brown. Tony, which item? And Dana Paterno says, "I hear elements of Kay, Wakeman, and Mraz in the keyboards." That's fair. And you know, I know.
Yeah,
So,
I do think I heard elements of K. I may need to listen a bit more to think of like the Mraz element, but I'm sure, you know, with their influences, it's probably there somewhere, you know.
yeah. Oh, Holy Lamb. Okay. Interesting. So let's talk about that for a minute. Are there any other Yes albums that do the same thing? Well, I guess
the ladder ends with 9 voices.
yeah, that was the same thing. And Relayer ends with To Be Over.
Yeah, but
I'm teasing with that one.
I feel like that has a bit more going for it because you got the soloing in the middle and the jam. So
no, I'm teasing with that one, but
yeah.
but the whole album's so well rounded musically and with John's voice and the songwriting, and it's still mind-blowing for me. It might be the best prog album I've heard come out this year and in a while. I haven't heard every prog album, but this is just, I think it's some of John's best work in, I can say, 20 years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Invention of Knowledge is really high up there for me. But part of that is because I was also listening to it during a tough time. So it was kind of my therapy. So I feel like I need to listen to this album some more and see if it sort of tops that for me in my personal rankings. But yeah, like this album, you know, the production is great. They even got Anne-Marie Nachia, who would sing on the Band Geeks online video renditions of Yes songs, and so you can hear her now and then. It's really cool that they got her involved.
Adds a nice layer to their own personal choir, because everyone in the band at some point, everyone in the band is singing. Everybody, both keyboard players, Andy Ritchie, Andy the drummer. It's full on. It's full on. They did not leave anything behind.
Yeah, and for the music videos, I'm really glad that they show the band performing, because there are visualizer music videos that get put out for different bands, and they look nice. They look like, you know, some like work was put into them, and sometimes they'll throw in pictures of the band. But I think it's really nice being able to see them with their instruments and seeing, you know, their expressions and stuff. And so I like that was part of the marketing for this album.
Totally. They should all be proud. John as well. I mean, man, I just can't give it enough praise. It is so good. It is so good.
Yeah. I remember being blown away by there's like some other prog album that came out earlier this year that I'm blanking on, but I think this is high up with that. Like it's so great to still be getting music that impresses, you know.
Yeah. Look at Daniel's comment. Andy A is a huge Beach Boys fan. Can you hear that in the harmonies? I kind of can. There's a long
Yeah.
comment here that I'm going to read because I don't think it will fit on screen. Oops. How do you? There we go. Mark Lang. Hi, Mark. Mark says, "Hi, guys. I'm here in Scotland and was thinking of going to see the last concert of this tour, but it would be a shorter show as it is with Carl Palmer, who I love, but I'll have to look him up. But I heard the album today and had goosebumps and tears as it is utterly brilliant. I'm now looking at one of the dates that has just John. One listen down, 1,000 at least to go. Love to know what the guys in Yes and Rick and Trevor think. You know, all of that is great. We would love to hear back from you after you see it. And, regarding Rick and Trevor and anybody else, sometimes they don't listen to each other's albums. Like I've heard, I've heard some. I can't think of which Yes members say. Maybe probably Rick, other than Soon. Yeah, I've never heard Relayer, or I never heard.
Yeah, I remember an interview within the last couple of years where Bill was asked his thoughts on Tales from Topographic Oceans, and he said he hasn't listened to it.
Yeah, and that to me, that's really weird. I mean, I get it in a way at the time, but all these years forward, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with going, I wonder what those guys were up to right after I left,
Yeah.
I don't think he'd appreciate it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
What do I know?
Because each musician has their own thing that they're busy with and that they want to concentrate on. And
yeah. But so, you go to the shop in your car and you throw on a CD. There you go. I mean, you sit on the toilet for 20 minutes. There you go. Ritual. I mean, there's ways to sneak it in. Come on, I'm busy. You're busy. We listen to stuff.
Yeah. Also, I remember a few years ago, maybe this was during the ARW days, John was talking about how he thinks it would be cool if they were to play something like Mind Drive, and like play some of that, and then it would segue into a new song, and then segue back into the rest of Mind Drive, something like
Interesting.
that. It was either ARW or the Paul Green Rock Academy, one of those. But it kind of got me imagining, like in Once Upon a Dream, there's that moment where he sings, "We're going to the heart of the sunrise," or what the verse is, and it's like, what if when they play that live, once he sings that, it segues into like.
It's funny. I want to read. One sec. I'm answering. Okay. I spelled that wrong, but whatever. You guys will get it. Dave Watkinson says the album is that good because they worked so hard on it. Their Geeks video discussion out yesterday shows you that.
I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, a must watch, guys. Wondering if I should wait for John in the UK or fly to the USA. I would fly to the USA if you can, to be sure you catch a full show of just John and the Band Geeks, in case that's not the model of the shows in the UK. You don't want to miss the full show, Dave, or anybody else. That's what I think.
Yeah, because I think as far as this year is concerned, they have just one more leg here in the US. I'm just looking at the upcoming.
Yeah, what is that? Well, it's on the back of my shirt. Here, read my shirt.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, so I'd have to lean in to read that, but I'm just looking at this list on the John Anderson website. So September 13th, Glenside, Pennsylvania. The 15th, also in Glenside. September 17th, Port Chester, New York. The 22nd, Montclair, New Jersey. 25th, New London, Connecticut. And the 27th, Staten Island, New York. So these are all on the East Coast.
Like they end up at home for the Band Geeks, basically.
Yeah, so it would be not too far of a flight as opposed to if it were still on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, I would go for it if one of those shows is of them alone. I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to risk missing the full show.
Yeah, because maybe they've talked about wanting to do UK and Europe. I'm just not sure how concrete if they've talked about it, I might be getting interviews mixed up.
Do you know, Dave? Like, chime in if you know that there's going to be UK dates. That would be helpful for others. But
yeah, because they haven't announced any. But things are hard to predict. So like, would try to go see them like however you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love it. We might do another little bit on this after we get our CDs. Because we always like breaking it down to the packaging and everything as well. So we probably do that or make it part of a news episode or something.
Yeah, maybe a bonus thing, maybe a little update on any other things we noticed / maybe forgot to mention here. But yeah, I'm really impressed, really happy with the album. Like, because John has all these projects that he's working on. And so whenever any of them come out, it's like, it's so satisfying to listen to.
And I hope it comes out on vinyl because I want to play it backwards.
No, yeah, it is on vinyl and CD.
Okay, because I want to play it backwards and see if he has the usual devil stuff in there. Oh, look what Daniel says. Go vinyl double album. Would it be a double album?
Well, it's an hour long, so that's longer than a vinyl album back in the day typically would have been.
Yeah. I don't remember how long a side of it. 22 minutes.
Yeah,
about 22.
Like
yeah. CD 74, I think.
That'd
be cool. A gatefold. I wonder what would be inside. It'd be great if it had, you unfold it and it's got a wide shot of them on stage with all the multimedia panels, and that'd really be cool. That'd be neat.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I'd go for. But great album. Get it, folks. Let us know what you think. Write in. You can write into us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. If you are a podcast listener type O person, you can follow us at anchor.fm/yesshift. And you're probably right now, if you're watching the archive or with us live, you're on either YouTube at youtube.com/@Yesshift or facebook.com/Yesshift. Got it right. Yeah, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We got Adam Wakeman coming up soon.
Next month.
What else do we have coming up on Yesshift?
Well, we got Johnny Bruns from Total Mass Retain. We'll also be interviewing next month. He's been involved with
Johnny's on the 26th of this month.
You're joking, right?
I have him down for the 26th at 6 p.m. our time, no?
Okay, so
sorry. When is it?
It's September.
I have it on September 26th also.
Okay. So you forgot to erase the bit that you were supposed to erase when you got mixed up, and it told you to fix it.
Right.
Okay.
Got it. I'm there. I'm good. We're good.
All right.
Let Steve tell you what we have coming up, folks, because I don't know what's happening. I'm just the arm can here. Actually, I'm not even that. Why am I here?
Right. And tomorrow we're since it's Jeff Downs' birthday tomorrow, Sunday the 25th, we're gonna go live at noon Pacific time and talk about this hypothetical that sort of came to mind after remembering something in Chris Welch's Close to the Edge book, which is that Jeff Downs becoming the keyboardist again in 1997 was apparently on the table. So we're going to be sort of speculating about what that might have been like, how different could things have been, lineup wise and whatnot. And so that'll be interesting to discuss.
Yeah, great album. Get it if you don't have it. If you have it, you've not listened to it enough. I can pretty much bet on that.
Right. Yeah, so give it a listen and check out new music. Really great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody so much. Thanks for following what we do. Stay tuned, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, bye everyone.